afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to What the Why with Barbara Ann on RVN Television. If you haven't seen us before, our show features conversations with diverse leaders from all walks of life about why they do what they do and how they figured things out. Maybe you're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, or you feel stuck and you want to get unstuck, whether that's in your business, your job, or even in personal life. All of our guests have something in common with you. At some point in their lives, they felt somewhat similarly, and today is no exception. Please join me in welcoming Charles Reed, who has quite the impressive resume. He's a CPA and CEO of Get Payroll, powered by Custom Payroll Associates, Inc. Charles is also a U.S. tax court practitioner, a 2018 appointee to the Internal Revenue Service Advisory Council, an employment tax expert and IRS watchdog, a small business advocate, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and four-time author who's working on his fifth book. And actually, I just learned a couple minutes ago, it's more like fifth, sixth, and seventh books. Charles has 50 years of financial leadership experience in a broad range of industries. In addition to being a licensed certified public accountant, which is what CPA stands for in case any of you are going to go on Jeopardy, he's also held a Series 7 and 66 securities licenses. His background stretches across accounting, taxes, manufacturing, construction, information technology, marketing, transportation, logistics, human resources, wholesale distribution, insurance, credit, and more. He's one of only 86 people in that 16-year time frame to pass the U.S. Tax Court non-attorney practitioner's examination, which allows him to represent clients in the U.S. Tax Court without being an attorney. It's very fitting that we're recording this episode only 2 days after Veterans Day, because Charles is a decorated United States Marine Corps sergeant and a combat veteran of the Vietnam War. In continuation of his military service to our country, Charles is currently on the board of the Veterans Coalition of North Central Texas. But wait, there's still more. Charles is a 20-year member of the Rotary Club of Dallas, a member of the club's board of directors, 11 years as treasurer, and chairman of the Rotary Club of Dallas Foundation. He's also a member of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, the Texas Society of Certified Public Accountants, the Greater Dallas Restaurant Association, the Independent Insurance Agents of America, the National Association of Health Underwriters, the Texas Association of Health Underwriters, and the Dallas chapter of the Texas Association of Health Underwriters. Let's not forget, he is an author. His books include The Payroll Book, a guide for small businesses and startup, The Little Black Book of the Beauty Business, Volume 1, Secrets of a Business Critical to a Salon's Success, Starting a New Business, Accounting, Finance, Payroll, and Tax Considerations, and even Small Business Short Course for Employees, Book 1. He's also authored numerous articles and blogs, and he hosts live and on-demand webinars for HR.com and others, and lectures for small and large groups. Charles received his BBA cum laude and MBA from the University of North Texas. As part of his requirements as a CPA, he undertakes numerous continuing professional education courses every year. Suffice to say, Charles has established himself as a thought leader in the field of executive and financial services for business owners over the course of his career, and it is an honor to have him as a guest on our show. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Charles Reed to our show. So, yay! Round of applause. So, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Barbara Ann. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, you have an extensive bio, so much. And so, first and foremost, thank you for your service to our country. And it'll be interesting to hear, as you know, all of our guests, the first question we ask is, after reading their extensive bio, we always ask, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Well, I was in a lot of things as a child, in drama and swimming and so on, and Dad was Navy, so I always wanted to be UDT, Underwater Demolition Team, which later morphed into being SEALs.
Wow.
But that was kind of my childhood dream. They had a TV program about it. a series and all kinds of things. So that was always my thing as a young child.
Wow. So how did you get from wanting to do that as a child to where you are now? I mean, because you wear a lot of hats.
Well, I'm an Iowa boy. I grew up in the Midwest. Went to high school. Got out of high school. Was not ready for college by any stretch of the imagination. So I joined the Marine Corps at 17. Spent 4 years in service, 2 years overseas, including a combat tour. Learned a lot in the Marine Corps, good and bad. A lot of experience. When I came back to the States, I met my wife. She was 10 years older than I was when I married her, had 5 children.
Wow.
So I got an instant family. I claim insanity, but it worked. We were married for 45 years before she passed. Aww. So I learned a lot from that too. Mm-hmm. But when I got out of military, business did not value my military experience. Yeah. Then, and even now, most businesses don't value military experience. They don't understand what we bring to the table as veterans because they haven't been there.
Agreed.
Veterans understand, non-veterans don't, and it's they've not seen the elephant. They don't understand, and that's life. Mm-hmm. So I went to school, got my degrees, sat for and passed my CPA exam while I was still in graduate school. Went to work in industry. Went to work for Texas Instruments.
Okay.
So spent 15 years in the corporate world. Realized I was never going to get to where I wanted to be in the corporate world because I didn't have the political skills. Unwilling to stab people in the back and toss them off the ladder. So started my own business. Ruth and I, in 1991, started our own business. And here we are some 32 years later, still in business.
Wow. And so let's talk about your business. I mean, it's payroll services. That's a huge need, but it's very niche. So how did you figure out that was the path for you?
Well, I started as an accounting firm, obviously a CPA, hung out my shingle basically. And we had a payroll sideline. We continued to grow that. I found selling payroll was a good way to sell accounting services. So we grew the payroll and we grew the accounting. About 10 years ago, I sold off the accounting portion to my partner, who I'd taken on. He didn't want anything to do with payroll. Okay. He's a very conservative CPA. So I kept the payroll business and have continued to grow it because I enjoy the payroll side. I'd grown tired of doing tax returns, and payroll is all business to business, as opposed to dealing with individual consumers and so on, which I find more taxing, for lack of a better word. So I like the business to business aspect of payroll. I like dealing with the IRS. To me, it's a game. So it gives me lots of opportunities to deal with the Internal Revenue Service in the states and solving problems for my clients and educating both my clients and the Internal Revenue Service at times. So it's a lot of fun to me, and it's something I continue to enjoy to do on a daily basis.
Which is awesome. It's not often that you hear people say they enjoy dealing with the IRS. But I mean, you don't just enjoy it. I mean, you literally were appointed to serve on their council. How did that come about?
Well, every year they ask for people to serve on the IRS Advisory Council. It's a federal advisory council organized under the laws passed by Congress. And so I applied, and they choose 6 or 7 a year. And so I served 3 years. And it's very interesting. I met the commissioner. I met all the deputy commissioners, chief of appeals, a lot of people, a lot of very interesting people, and got a much better insight into how the IRS works and the mindset of IRS senior management. Found out a lot of things, good and bad. I mean, a lot of their technology is very old and obsolete. They're working on it very hard to modernize everything. But it's 100,000 civil servants that don't have a profit motive.
Yeah.
So the same motive that we have in business to serve our clients and keep them happy doesn't happen in a government agency. It's just not the same thing. It's civil service, and they have different motivations than business people do. And it was interesting to get into that mindset and see how it worked. Now, they're not bad people. I mean, they're all mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters. They're for the most part, they're good people. And I enjoyed meeting a lot of them, but they are civil servants.
Yeah.
And they have a different mindset than business people do. So that was very interesting. But it gave me a lot of contacts to use and a lot of information. And so it was a very worthwhile experience.
Which is awesome. Now, so much of what you do actually does involve giving back. I mean, you serve on a foundation board, you've taught pro bono, and you describe yourself as someone who's very passionate about small business. How did you find yourself in the position of really becoming an advocate for small business industries, including the book that you wrote about beauty salons? Not one would think of that as a natural transition from what you're doing to writing a book about how to help a beauty salon owner.
Well, the beauty salon came about because my first marketing manager was by training an esthetician. And so was very aware of that and was aware of all the problems in the back office of the beauty business. The book was about the back office of the beauty business, not the beauty side. I mean, you can look at me and see I know nothing about beauty. So it was dealing with payroll, accounting, scheduling, employees, hiring, firing, independent contractors, all those things that are the back office that people who go into the beauty business, they're in there for the beauty side. They're not in there for the back office, and a lot of them don't know. And with my marketing manager being an esthetician, she brought a lot to the book. She's co-author on it. So that was about the beauty book. Now, the most recent one, the payroll book, answering questions for my clients for years. There's no real good reference manual out there. The only thing out there that approaches it is the payroll source from the American Payroll Association, and that's $600 and designed to train payroll processors to pass their certification. So I wrote a book that was much more approachable for small business, with the requisite horror stories and tips and all the things that you shouldn't do and examples. And I said, I'm gonna write this, and I figured I'd knock something out. And 2 years later,
there it was.
And with the help of Wiley as my publisher, we had a pretty good book. It's basically 30 years of wisdom distilled down to 95,000 words.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So, and I know some salons that I'm definitely going to recommend that book to, because that is a common theme that I hear all the time from salon owners, other companies too, but salon owners. They're really good at what they do. They're not necessarily really good at all of the operational functions of running a salon, and that can be really challenging. In terms of how you got to where you are now, I mean, there are a number of different large payroll companies out there. What makes you different?
Our unique selling proposition is compliance. I mean, all the payroll companies do a reasonably good job of preparing paychecks. I mean, otherwise they'd be out of business. But if you want to talk to a CPA about the tax aspects of your payroll, the majors don't have anybody to talk to. They have CPAs, but they do internal work. They'll tell you to talk to your own CPA. If your own CPA was a payroll expert, he'd be doing your payroll for you already.
Yeah.
So being a CPA and then plus being a U.S. tax court practitioner, I bring a level of compliance expertise that my competitors don't have. Period, new paragraph. They do not have that available for their clients. I do. My clients can call me up and ask about a tax situation, how it affects the rest of their taxes, how it impacts their business. And when there's a problem, and the IRS makes millions of mistakes every year, obsolete technology and 100,000 civil servants, and paper, gobs of paper. They make mistakes.
Yeah.
In 19, prior to COVID, they issued $13 billion in employment tax penalties, of which approximately half were abated because they were mistakes, misunderstandings, whatever. And I'm an expert at solving these things. Also, clients don't understand that they can't be penalized for a simple mistake. The IRS will penalize them, but the law does not allow that. Now, the IRS will allege gross negligence, which they can apply a penalty to. And it's my job to prove to the IRS and or the court that it's not gross negligence, it's a simple mistake, and therefore no penalty can be assessed. I'm good at it. I've got 30 years of experience and all the expertise and the professional qualifications and certifications to do that.
Awesome.
And that's what we bring to the table that our competitors don't.
Awesome. So believe it or not, it is time for our commercial break. So for our viewers, please stay tuned for these commercials from our sponsors and come back for more with Charles Reed on What the Why. Welcome back to What the Why with Barbara Ann and today's very special guest, Charles Reed, CPA and CEO of Get Payroll. And we've been talking about what makes his company and him unique. I mean, he's a very accomplished professional in so many different areas. You know, and you took a risk when you started a business. I mean, yes, I agree with you. Veterans are often highly misunderstood, which is one of the reasons why I like featuring them on my show in terms of the skills that they have that are transferable to the civilian life, so to speak. And realizing after a number of years that that really wasn't for you, you started your own company. So where did you find the courage to do that?
I grew up in a family business. My father was an entrepreneur and had an insurance consulting agency. The office was upstairs in the house, and so I grew up in a business. I thought being in business for yourself was common, and my father worked with my mother in the business. They both worked together, and I thought that working with your spouse was a normal thing. I didn't realize until I went into business with my wife that working with your wife is an unnatural act. But we succeeded. So it was, my wife was perfectly willing to help me, and that made it much easier. She understood, and she understood what the life of an entrepreneur was going to be, which was, 80 hours a week and so on and so forth. And having her in the business, she wasn't nagging me to come home. She was nagging me to get done at the office so we could go home. So it worked out, but I don't know if I could have done it without her, very frankly. But I was very tired of the corporate life, tired of people telling me what to do, and my livelihood depending on somebody else's whim. So for me, an entrepreneur and your own business was a natural. And I like I said, I'd grown up in it. It didn't seem to me to be that big of a risk. I know it is for a lot of people, and we were lucky and things worked, and been in business more than 30 years now, so I'm very pleased with that.
Yeah, I definitely say that counts as a success. What would you say is probably one of your bigger lessons learned during this 30-plus year journey as a business owner?
You can't do everything. As an entrepreneur, you wear all the hats to start with, and you can see what that's done to me. So you have to move them off as quickly as possible, and you have to know which ones to move off and provide the authority and the responsibility to other people who can do the job better than you can. First rule of time management, of course, is only do what only you can do. The one thing I thought I could do was market. And finally, I'd gotten big enough and busy enough that I no longer had the time for marketing. So I hired a marketing manager. And it took less than 2 weeks to realize I couldn't market my way out of a paper bag.
Oh.
She was so much better at it than I was, so much more creative, had so much more knowledge and understanding of how to do it. I was awed
Wow.
by how little I actually knew. Now, we'd been successful and grown, but she brought a whole new concept and energy to the marketing that has been very successful. So you've got to learn your skill set and evaluate it properly. And I didn't. I frankly thought I could do things I couldn't. But that's also being an entrepreneur, or if you didn't think you could do things, you'd never go into business. So you've got to evaluate yourself and your own skill set.
Awesome. Now, if you were the one doing the interview, what's one question that you would have asked of yourself that I haven't?
Well, the one thing that always fascinates me, as it should you, Barbara Ann, is how was it working with your spouse?
Ah, okay. So how is it working with your spouse?
Well, I threatened to write a book on working with your spouse and all the things. And as I refer to when it's an unnatural act. It's not something most people can do. And we had our ups and downs. It took us probably a year to really reset the guidelines of interaction, because at home, I learned very early on. I learned from my father the most important words in a marriage are "yes, dear."
I like to say happy spouse, happy house, but that's funny.
That works. And also, if you ever get into an argument with your wife and you find out you're right, apologize immediately. But in business, I'm the CPA, I'm the expert, I'm the professional, and my opinion has to prevail. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm the expert. And so we both had to come to grips with the change from her being the boss to me being the boss. So that was one. As I was telling you pre-interview, I had to break her of one very bad habit. We would get into bed, and she would have one more thing to get off her chest to tell me about business. And getting that off her chest, she'd roll over and go to sleep. And I'd sit there and worry until 2 or 3 in the morning before I could get to sleep. So we set a rule in the household that after dinner, no more business. That meant for some very late dinners some nights, but it did help me get some sleep.
Oh my goodness. So I do have a suggestion for you. Stand-up comic. You have some serious material. You might want to consider adding that to your resume. So as we start to wind down, now you teach so many people in so many different ways about business and finances and back office and front office. For someone who's interested in going into accounting, financial services, what's 1 or 2 pieces of advice that you would give to them?
You have to analyze yourself. Are you an analytical person? Are you a nitpicker? Do you like that kind of thing? When you start a book, do you read the whole book whether you like it or not? You have to have tenacity, and you have to have analytical skills. Ruth was very much of a touchy-feely person. Everybody loved Ruth. And I'm not. And so that made for a good partnership that worked and was successful. But if you're going to go into an analytical business, you have to have that bent, or it's not going to succeed. The other thing is, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to understand it's not an easy life. It's not for everybody. If you want the 40 hours a week, go home at 5 o'clock at night and have the weekends off and 2 weeks vacation every year, don't be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
At 30 years of business, I can come in late, I can take the weekend, I can take a week's vacation. But the first 5, 7, 8 years, there were no vacations. It was 70, 80 hours a week, every week, all year long. The only holidays we got at all were I would take Ruth with me to a professional conference, and we might get in a half a day before or after. And that was vacations. So it's not an easy life. It's not for everybody.
Well, thank you so much. We're approaching the end of our time. For those who are interested in having someone handle their financial or their payroll services in a way that's different than what a lot of other companies, actually any other companies that I'm aware of, and I've used 3 in past roles, how can somebody get a hold of you and your company?
We're all over the web as getpayroll.com. My personal email is cjr@getpayroll. And if they have a question they just need an answer to, 972-353-0000. Ask for Charles.
Awesome. I think you may be my first guest in 2 seasons that's actually given out a phone number, and I can attest to the fact that he does actually get back to you personally. Even with the fact that he has a team, he responds personally. So thank you again for your service, for taking your time to Zoom in to us from Texas, and for sharing your story about all of the different things that you've done and this unique way of providing payroll services that's available throughout the United States. So as for our upcoming guests, we have quite a few. We're booked all the way through March, and as I mentioned in our last episode, we can officially confirm we're returning for a 3rd season. And our upcoming guests include business owners, coaches, authors, technology experts, entrepreneurs, a former professional skier, cancer survivors, and others who overcame seemingly insurmountable challenges. Please believe me when I say you really don't want to miss what any of our future guests have to say about their journeys. And if you've missed any of our past guests and want to check out what they had to say, you can catch all of season 1 as well as season 2 on demand on the What the Why page of RVN Television website. You have so many viewing choices these days. Thank you very much for watching our show, and please tell a friend or colleague about us and RVN Television. As a reminder, What the Why airs on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, which is now Eastern Standard Time, as well as 3:30 p.m. on Mondays. So that's 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and 3:30 p.m. on Mondays, Eastern Standard Time. And that is available on rvntelevision.com as well as Roku, and coming soon to other platforms. And also, whether you're looking to make a change in your life, no matter how big or small, please join us again for more inspirational, informative, or illuminating conversations with guests such as Charles, who overcame whatever challenges or obstacles might have been in their paths to find their purpose in life and to live it.